So this is for my vocal lesson. I, as you may remember, had not started the camera when I did my group lesson, but it's all still pretty fresh, so I'll just go over what I remember, which is, I think, basically all of it, and what happened. So I had my lesson on Tuesday, last Tuesday, and just like starting off with the whole thing, I wasn't feeling good. I was coming straight off the flu. So I think that like my energy wasn't really there. Usually I have a pretty high energy when I try to give lessons, or at least that's something I'm striving for. But in this case, it just kind of wasn't there. And that's something that like, I guess I could work on. I don't know how much energy I could have given in a setting where I just came off of having the flu. But my voice wasn't really there. I was a little groggy, tired. I'm pretty sure everyone was. The class size was small. So I think I just kind of like let that get in the way of the lesson a little bit, just in the overall situation of it. But I mean, it wasn't a terrible lesson. I started off with some sirens, and as anticipated, I started low to high, high to low. I made everyone do hand signals, but I mean, it worked to a mixed degree. I don't think it was something that was really necessary that I did. But in terms of warming up the class, I think it proved semi-useful. I could have done more with just sirens and lip trilling, even though my exercise was range exploration and things like that, and I kind of wanted to touch the outer edges of everyone's range. I think that I could have maybe done perhaps like a sight reading that was pretty low, or just something to get people in the actual singing mood. But regardless, after I did the sirens, probably a couple too many times, I did do the sirens over and over again, which I felt was unnecessary. We did what I described as the 5-note for Scott. That's what my two professors, Scott Watson, taught me. And something that kind of permeated this whole lesson was me trying to apply my own experience in music and the tuba to voice, which doesn't work as well as I had hoped, but there are some good translations and some good feedback that I got from a couple of my peers. But I started with the 5-note exercise, where I had students start on maybe like the lower C of their range, so something that would be near the bottom, and half step by half step, getting lower by a half step, and just trying to find their extent of their range. I also talked about touching the larynx, and I didn't describe it right. I mean, I described it in an adequate way, but I described the larynx, not the larynx, the thyroid cartilage as lowering, like almost dropping, because mine can drop. Even though we want it to more so tilt forward and lower because of those muscles that are being activated that we talked about later. I actually thought that was pretty good. I'm glad I did that because it gave people a visual, at least if you have a really pronounced thyroid cartilage like I do, or like an Adam's apple, or even if you don't, just feeling that piece of cartilage move definitely helps connect the dots when it comes to the content that I was looking at my lesson. So I had them hold on to their thyroid cartilage and do the exercise and feel it drop. And one of the issues that came with exercises like this is that my lesson is very much realizing now, designed in a one-on-one scenario, as these are things that I learned one-on-one with Scott Watson. So I can get a whole class to do this like 5-note exercise, but everyone's going to be stopping at different points, and I have to come across the issue of where do I stop and when do I keep going and try pushing my students. Unfortunately, range exploration isn't something that I'm familiar with in vocal pedagogy, which is like most things I'm not really familiar with in vocal pedagogy. But that exercise went pretty well. I could tell that people were a little like, what is he doing? Kind of, there's a little bit of hesitancy in the sound, and I tried to, I gave a little bit of feedback dealing with opening up the throat, making sure we're getting lots of steady air with the thyroid cartilage dropping. That's going to help get those low notes out, and there's a lot of resonance. And it worked in this exercise, but in the second exercise I did, which I realize now that I thought it would all take longer, but it didn't. So I didn't really plan. I got 8 minutes out of 10 minutes. But I did the Do You See What I See exercise. It's just 1, 5, 1, or 1/5 and an octave up, and then you go up chromatically. Yeah, whatever. And that is very much not a voice exercise. Realizing now it's very much a tuba exercise, because there's so much range in a tuba to explore. And I'll go over that in a second. But I did that exercise. The same thing as this that I did previous with the students. I chose a C, and I had students choose maybe like the upper side of the register, so that we could get going up by half notes an extension of the upper register. And I had them sing "Do You See What I See," so that we could get some vocalization in there instead of just going do 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 do, because I feel like it would help with getting the tune in their ear and making sure that we're getting the correct pitches and all that. And I chose that exercise because it helps with pitch, and it's just a great way to hear that lower octave and hear that higher octave, which I'm realizing now is more so beneficial in tuba, because we have so much larger of a range in an instrument rather than a voice, that hearing that low octave makes hearing that high octave a lot easier to play, which is true in voice. But when I'm playing an F and I gotta get to this high F, it doesn't really help if I physically can't play that high F hearing that low F. So the same thing happened here, is the low one to varying success. People were dropping out at some point, and I had to stop the exercise at one moment, just to deal with, some people could go on, but some people couldn't, and I wanted to make sure that everyone was singing. I think I got a good amount of singing in here. I didn't do the best job explaining what I wanted out of the voice, though, and this is something that Zach specifically brought up when I was overall done with the lesson. I had my couple last minutes to spare, and we worked on our group thing together, working on my exercises. Is that the resonance that I was looking for, I didn't really explain very well, as the type of air with the larynx, not the larynx, I keep wanting to say larynx, the thyroid cartilage raising when we're doing those higher notes, as opposed to the opposite when we're doing the low notes. That's something I could have explained, and I think would have helped out a lot. But yeah, after everything finished, we did the 5-note exercise again. We did it a little bit slower, and we focused on, instead of extending the range necessarily, looking for that good sound in the lower range, which helped out with the sound of the ensemble a lot. I think I was focusing more on the range that I was going for. I was more focused on the extent of the range than I was focused on the tone of the singers, which is arguably just as, if not more important, which is something I could look at going more forward into lessons in the future vocally. And then once that was over, we got to what I thought I did good, which was, admittedly, I wasn't really feeling the lesson. I felt it when I made the lesson plan, that I thought this was going to be really good and people are going to enjoy it. But overall, I think it was maybe just a dead room, or my energy wasn't there as well. So it was kind of a really low energy lesson. I got behind the piano, which was impressive for me, because I'm not really good with doing the piano stuff, but I feel like the piano distracts me at times from the singing. So doing maybe just the first note of exercises could help in letting the singers do it themselves overall. And I had a pretty good job explaining with the explaining what I wanted with sirens and things like that, and demonstrating the exercises. And just some feedback I got. Elias brought up a really good point, which was another unfortunate issue that I had with the "Do You See What I See" exercise, is that for a he specifically said for a high school or a higher band, orchestra choir, and I went through all the ensembles, high school or higher choir, I could definitely use that exercise because they're going to have that great range. But for maybe an elementary school choir, or for a middle school choir, someone who's just starting out vocally, they only really have a vocal range of an octave. So maybe their range is from C to C. So if we do the "Do You See What I See" exercise, they're done. That's it. You can go up maybe a half step or two, but that's pushing it and could damage the voice. So overall, it was an all right lesson. I've had better, I've had worse. The content was tricky to find some information for, but I think I made it work. And I definitely have some ideas of how I could work the exercises to make them better vocally. But I also think that this lesson would be rather successful if it was in a one-on-one situation or scenario. So I'm not too disappointed with how it went. I think it went all right. And I think it would work better in a different scenario, which is rewarding in its own right, because I at least know now what situation I should use this in. So yeah, that's my pretty lengthy review of how I think my lesson went. And sorry I don't have the Zoom recording. I feel really stupid for not just pressing play. I think I pressed play twice because I had a 1-second clip of me of just the ambient classroom. But yeah, this is my review.